Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about Blasted. Blasted is a Norwegian sci-fi that tells the story of Sebastian, a man who's about to enjoy a bachelor party with his friends prior to his upcoming wedding, but is surprised to see his former childhood friend and laser tag buddy Mikkel as one of the attendees. Despite this, he and his group continue on to the rural area of Hesdalen for the party. While en route, strange things start happening in the area, leading to an ancient alien force being awakened and invading the land around it, possessing anyone it comes across. As a result, the party is interrupted, and the two friends must put aside their differences to overcome the alien invasion together. This movie knows exactly what kind of movie it is. It's purposely goofy in nature and not meant to be taken seriously in any way. This does prove to be a double-edged sword, of course, as though it can be fun in short bursts, it does tend to be too silly for its own good and suffers from awkward pacing. To start, most of the characters in this movie are pretty generic. Sebastian is the only one in the group that has any sort of development, in that he desires to be noticed more at his workplace but has a hard time fitting in, which also ties into his ongoing identity crisis in general. This does make him somewhat relatable as a protagonist, but in the end it's nothing that hasn't been seen before. He more or less exists just to help move the story along, which for this kind of movie is fine, but it's a bit disappointing that there isn't much attempt to make him stand out more. His friend Mikkel is similarly bland as well. He's remained a child at heart and has never grown much as an adult, so he still remains obsessed with the laser tag hobby that he and Sebastian used to play together as kids, even going so far as to bring his toys to the trip in an attempt to reconnect. It does make sense to an extent as to why he remains so invested in his interests and how he gets left behind while Sebastian matures, but even so, his story is nothing unique, not to mention that it's really weird to see someone like him not make friends with other laser tag enthusiasts his age, speaking as a fan of the activity myself. The relationship between these two has some kind of void that isn't immediately explained, which sort of baffled me. It is explored in detail later on, but it's puzzling to see these two act so awkward with each other over something silly related to laser tag, which ends up being distracting from the fun vibe it's supposed to be pushing. It all surrounds this idea of pretending to be someone that the other person isn't, which is already a weak angle by itself, and the way it's used to generate conflict between these two is nothing short of lazy. The characters have good chemistry otherwise and share funny lines together, but their drama drags the story's pacing. None of the other characters are really worth mentioning, as they all tag along for the sake of the trip and have no distinguishable personality. The only one that sort of stands out is Casper, mostly because he plays up the dickhead boss persona to a T, and it's a lot of fun to see him get angry over minor inconveniences. I also like the pregnant police officer character. She adds a sense of normalcy to the absurdity that goes on around her, and always has this look on her face like she can't believe what she has to deal with, which makes it even more hilarious when she starts cussing like a sailor. The way the aliens are portrayed in this movie is quite interesting, as they're more of a hive mind that controls others. There's not much to tell them apart from others besides their green eyes, but one thing about them that saves the movie from being completely forgettable is their weakness. The aliens are weak to the laser tag weapons that Mikkel brings on the trip, along with pretty much any other kind of filtered light, which sounds like a crazy idea, and yet for this kind of movie it oddly works. It results in a lot of silly scenarios that are more entertaining than they are cringeworthy. As I said earlier, the movie makes it 100% clear that it's aiming to be campy in presentation. The music blares over dramatically, characters scream at the top of their lungs before being snatched by aliens, and just the idea of using laser tag weapons as an actual weapon is ridiculous, so much so that it actually ends up being a lot of fun. This being said, one has to wade through a lot of filler to get to the good stuff. Although the movie's opening is great and sets the stage for events to follow, it takes a long time for everything else to get going afterward, as the boys go about their trip and get caught in one shenanigan after another, which further affects the story's pacing. On a related note, the majority of this movie's comedy is in the dialogue, which usually doesn't land well. There's a running gag revolving around Sebastian's boner, a bunch of talk about cotton candy, and even the guys repeatedly saying beep boop, which is about as low effort as things can go. I can only count a handful of times where I laughed when watching it, and almost none of it had to do with the dialogue. Once the movie is focused on the action with the aliens, that's when things get a lot more intriguing. Like I said, the movie has a lot of fun with the laser tag concept, showcasing a lot of creativity behind how the weapons are used, and they're backed up by surprisingly decent special effects. The gun sound effects are great, and it's always satisfying to see an alien blow up into goo. The movie reminded me of other sci-fis when watching it, with movies such as Alien, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and even Ghostbusters coming to mind. While the movie may be unoriginal in this sense, it's obvious that the filmmakers had a lot of love for science fiction, and it's nice that that passion is consistent throughout the story. One thing that makes this movie different from other invasion movies, however, is the setting where it takes place. It features a ton of great picturesque locations with lush green forest and snowy mountains in the background. It adds more flavor unlike typical movie bloody alien invasions that take place in dull grey cities, and it also adds to the isolation that the group experiences while trapped amongst the aliens. It's a shame that the movie has such a tedious first half with its characters and story, because the second half is a lot more compelling as the invasion finally takes off. It has its enjoyable moments here and there, but they're not enough to hold the audience's attention for long. Overall, Blasted is an average sci-fi comedy that is decent as a parody of invasion movies, but not much more beyond that. If you like sci-fis that have a comedy element to them and you don't mind dealing with boring characters and plot exposition, I think you might enjoy watching this movie. Its heart is in the right place with its dedication to lampooning and celebrating science fiction, but lacks focus, with numerous distractions surrounding the plot and characters. I don't really recommend it, but it's not that bad either. What did you think about this movie? Did you enjoy the action scenes surrounding the aliens, or were you put off by the story's pacing? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's gonna wrap up my review of Blasted. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the American drama, Beauty. Bye bye!